Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? Thanksgiving week, and happy to be here with you on this Wednesday. No, not Wednesday, it's Tuesday. I'm a day ahead of schedule. Our phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Of course, I am Rich Valdez, and that's Valdez with an S if you want to check me out on social media or on our website at richvaldez.com. And we've got a bunch of stuff to talk about tonight, and we are going to talk about it. We're going to start with the big news of the day. Bibi Netanyahu and Hezbollah have agreed to a ceasefire. Now, we talked about this last night. Colonel John Mills said, yeah, of course there's going to be a ceasefire. There's not a whole lot left, right, for them to fire upon. The Hezbollah agreement, though, is probably has a little more meat to it in Lebanon. So we have President Joe Biden giving his thoughts on that. Listen to this.
Today, I have some good news to report from the Middle East. I just spoke with the Prime Minister of Israel and Lebanon. I'm pleased to announce that their governments have accepted the United States proposal to end the devastating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. I want to thank President Macron of France for his partnership in reaching this moment. For nearly 14 months, a deadly conflict raged across the border that separates Israel and Lebanon. A conflict that began the day after the October 7 attack by Hamas on Israel. Hours later, at 2 a.m. in the morning, Hezbollah and other terrorist organizations backed by Iran attacked Israel in support of Hamas. Let's be clear, Israel did not launch this war. The Lebanese people did not seek that war either, nor did the United States. Over the past year, including the days immediately following October the 7th, I directed the U.S. military to flow assets and capabilities into the region, including aircraft carriers, fighter squadrons, and sophisticated air defense battery, to defend Israel and deter our common enemy at critical moments.
All right, I'm back. Biden was putting me to bed there. Some of the elements of the deal include, I'm going to let the guy from the BBC tell you because he's got that wonderful British accent. Listen to this.
It looks like the ceasefire deal is going to go ahead, which is 60 days, a kind of trial 60 days, 2 months, during which the Israeli army will withdraw in stages from Lebanon, from the south of Lebanon, where it's been active. Hezbollah will withdraw north of the Litani River, 30 kilometers north of the Lebanon border, and the security vacuum will be backfilled by a bolstered Lebanese National Army and troops from UNIFIL, that's the United Nations interim force in Lebanon. But critically for Israel, the reason why I think he's been able to pass this, to get this deal through the Security Cabinet, or at least get their backing for it, even if they haven't actually physically signed off on it yet. The reason that Israel's been relatively comfortable with this is because it reserves the right to go back into Lebanon with presumably airstrikes or ground forces if it detects that there is an imminent military threat from Hezbollah.
Again, that report from the BBC. And again, some of the key points here. Israel and Lebanon have agreed to a permanent ceasefire in the battles that they've been having across the borders there between the IDF and the Hezbollah terrorists. And this starts at 4 a.m. tomorrow. So they're going to stop fighting, and that's what Joel Baboso Biden mentioned from the Rose Garden earlier. You've got the comments from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. They were in Hebrew, so didn't bring you those because, my Hebrew isn't as good as it used to be, and I can't translate all of it for you. So Basically, he has mentioned in the past, though, that he supported a ceasefire deal, which is being sent now to his cabinet for the final approvals. And the whole thing has been pretty much accepted. They're calling it a permanent ceasefire with Hezbollah. Israel-Hezbollah, permanent ceasefire. Permanent ceasefire for 60 days. Right? How about that? You got to love diplomacy. That's what's going on there. Then we also have other things, right? Some of the big things that are happening in the news today. There's some news on America's Mayor, Rudy Giuliani. We'll talk about that in a little bit. There's also some polls out that we're going to talk about in a little bit. And I also want to talk about the growing threat of global communism. Now, some of you might say, oh, you're spot on, Rich, right over the target. Some of you might be saying, oh, my gosh, this Valdez, all he does is, he can find a communist sympathizer, behind every last bush. Yep, Red Scare Rich over here. I think that the communists have influenced so much of our government. I don't think it's an overstatement to say that the communists gave birth and shaped America's labor unions and their structure. From their inception, they were designed to be political in nature, despite saying they were supposed to be for worker conditions or so that women could become teachers or this, that, and the other. And I'm not saying they don't get their stuff done, but the organizing aspect has always outweighed the bargaining aspect when it comes to labor unions, in my opinion. That's not so humble. So we're going to talk about this growing threat of communism across the country and across the world, really, and what it looks like, and is it expanding? Is it dissipating? Where do we stand with that? Well, we're going to have some conversation on that as well. Plus, your calls. I've been enjoying a lot of new callers as we've been kind of taking more calls each hour instead of leaving all the calls for the final hour for open phones across America. And I'm really enjoying those conversations. The phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
New CBS News polling shows that most Americans approve of President-elect Donald Trump's handling of his transition so far. 59% say they are happy with the way things are going, and 54% of Republicans polled say that they are excited about what Trump will do as the next president of the United States. CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian joins me now from West Palm Beach. So, Nicole, as you know, our polling also revealed that a majority of Democrats say they are concerned or scared about what Trump may do as president.
Yeah, well, I think in terms of our polling, it does show a split with many Republicans who were polled saying that they are excited or optimistic about what the president-elect will do. While, as you mentioned, Democrats feel a little differently, about half saying that they are scared, another 35% saying that they are concerned. And some of this stems from concerns about, what they are worried about the president-elect's potential policies, how that might impact individual rights, for instance. But at the same time, to your point, I think our polling also shows that many Democrats do want to see the current Biden administration work with the Trump transition to ensure a smooth transition process, and that congressional Democrats, work with the incoming Trump administration. So they do want to see some bipartisanship there, even though they may not necessarily be thrilled about some of the potential policies to come.
All right. I don't know what she said, but the beginning part of what she said that people are concerned about losing their rights. And I'm thinking, who are these people? And if they're so concerned, why did they vote for Trump in such big numbers? Let's get to the bottom of this with John McLaughlin. He's CEO and partner at McLaughlin Associates. They, of course, had the I'm not going to say the winning lotto numbers, but they had their numbers pretty darn tight, and they were right about this thing all along. I remember back in 2020, I did a town hall in New York City called Latinos for Liberty Town Hall, and John McLaughlin was talking about exactly what just played out for this go-round, saying that it's going to be Hispanics that push Trump over the top. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. It's like he's got a crystal ball. John McLaughlin, welcome back.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Rich. And actually, if you just listen to the voters and you take an unbiased survey, you can see what could happen. And fortunately for me, being a pollster for Donald Trump and his campaign, having worked for him all these years, he did what was necessary, that he was able to win the race, and the majority of Americans voted for him. He won the popular vote. He won 312 electoral votes, and which was bigger than the last time he won, and it was a very decisive win.
And John McLaughlin, there is an article. I want to share just a couple of tidbits from it with you. And Trump's favorability jumped 6 points. 6 points. And this is surpassing Biden's figures, which have sunk to a 4-year low. Let me give you some of the stats, and I'm sure you've seen this, but just to bring everybody up to speed, this bump that Trump is enjoying is really not a surprise to me, but something that is shocking those on the left. It's from Emerson College, and they found that both men and men trending in the opposite direction with Trump's favorability, and for Biden, 36% job approval, so 54 to 36, which is what they talked about before, and this is really quite a number. Now it goes on to discuss how some of the numbers that best polled for Trump were men at 61% compared to 48% of women. In terms of race, it was 59% of white voters viewed Trump as positive, compared to 53% of Hispanic voters that viewed Trump positively, and 28% of black voters. These are huge numbers, 53% of Hispanics. The president-elect never cracked 50% approval in his first administration, but here he is, as president-elect and blowing it away with minorities and with men. I mean, it's really impressive numbers. It also continued. Let me see if some of the poll respondents were asked if they were surprised by the results of the 2024 election. 46% of respondents said they were surprised, but 54% said they were not surprised. And I'm guessing you're not surprised about this either, John McLaughlin.
No, and what was different, we did an post-election poll that was done, we did it between November 4th and 6th, where we called 1,000 voters who had either voted early already or voted on Election Day. And we got 56 to 43. They approved the job President Trump had done as president. And he had a higher favorable, unfavorable. He was a net positive as compared to, this was back on November 6th. He was at 51-48 favorable, unfavorable, which was better than both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So Trump not only was perceived as a better president, he was, by the time Election Day had hit, in spite of the fact that they called him a fascist, a dictator, all these, it was basically political character assassination. Right. The American people liked him better than Kamala Harris, and they knew he would be a better president. So, and the vast majority of voters, 63%, said the country was still on the wrong track. So they wanted a change, and he became the change candidate. Here he was, the president who he was there at the end. They'd call him a name. He was working McDonald's. He was. They'd call him a name. He was doing a Joe Rogan podcast for 3 hours. Kamala Harris couldn't do it. He held the mother of all campaign rallies in Madison Square Garden, and then President Biden called Trump supporters garbage, and there he is going to a rally in Wisconsin using a garbage truck. And people, what was amazing, people showing up on Election Day wearing the orange vest that, a garbage man would kind of work or highway worker would wear. So, he showed a lot of determination and character and resilience. And especially when you look at the phony trials they basically tried to put him in jail, take away his wealth, and they tried to knock him off the ballot, take away his rights, civil rights to run for president, free speech, because they just didn't want him to win again. And the American people said, well, the last time we asked it, they said 6 out of 10 voters said all these indictments were political. And the majority of voters thought Joe Biden had played a role in it to stop him from running for president or winning for president. And the American people just said, we're going to elect him. I mean, this is the person that we need to run the country again. Because they wanted, when you asked, and this is on our website on McLaughlinonline.com, why did you vote for President Trump? Economy, inflation, the border, reducing crime, etc. It's all issues. And the vast majority of voters voted for him in a positive sense to solve the issues we're facing. The Harris voters, when you ask why they voted for Harris instead of Trump, the leading verbatim response was 24% in our poll said it was because they were voting against Trump. And, then after that, it was all single-digit responses. She didn't have a message at the end. She didn't have a reason to win for president. And she didn't demonstrate she could solve our problems. So the American people, and now you see Donald Trump really tackling the new transition with his cabinet's already picked. He's naming other advisors for the White House. He is ready to serve and is ready to change things in Washington.
John McLaughlin, Trump had a lot of success, and of course he's an iconic New Yorker, and I understand why New Yorkers, kind of support the guy because, they know him. But I wonder, with policies like his, why is it that you have some politicians like AOC that do so well in the Bronx and Queens?
Well, mainly because they're Democrats. Their district, when you look at it's in Queens and Corona, et cetera, and then it's up in the Bronx. It's it's a 4-1 Democrat district. So she wins because she's got the Democrat label next to her name in a state in a district where the Democrat registration is really high. However, Trump gained in her district. And your point about, nationally, we got 45% of the Hispanic vote. We saw that in the battleground states, 46% nationally. We won the Hispanic vote in states like Texas and Florida overwhelmingly. And we won big among Hispanic men, did better than ever among Hispanic women. And we were making, and African-American men, we got 21% running against an African-American woman, so that's good. And then, we made inroads among the youth vote. We made inroads among suburban voters. We were winning suburban moms who were rejecting this transgender ideology that is basically punishing their daughters who want to play sports. So he's, President Trump is really a historic figure because he's outside the system and he brings that outsider image into the race and he captures the majority of Americans to vote for him now.
John McLaughlin, folks, he is pollster to President Trump, head of McLaughlin Associates. Your calls and more are coming up. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, listen, it's very frustrating when we have a country and a president and an administration that are fighting back against the law, inviting all this illegal immigration into our country, bringing those people in who are committing those rapes, those murders, and crushing the families across the entire country. So I'm thankful that we finally have a president, President Trump, who's going to enforce the laws of the United States of America. I'm thankful that we have Tom Homan as the incoming border czar, who's going to help execute those laws and enforce those laws and make sure that we get back to restoring order.
That, of course, is Texas Governor Greg Abbott on Fox News saying that obviously he's ecstatic about Tom Homan coming in. And this, to me, was the defining issue in the election. Hands down, that and the economy. I don't know which one outweighed the other, but I'm going to get an idea when we tap back in with our guest. Our guest is John McLaughlin, head of McLaughlin Associates, CEO and partner there, pollster to President Trump. From a polling perspective, John, which was the bigger issue now that everything's been said and done? Was it the economy and inflation, or was it national security with the border?
I mean, they were the top two. Economy was said more often because of inflation, but on the other hand, the border was very high because of people's concerns about crime. A lot of times when they said crime, they were thinking of the border with fentanyl, et cetera, and they were thinking of the human trafficking, and it's all over the country. It's really spread from just the border. You look at New York City. I mean, you got 5% of the arrests in Manhattan, in the Times Square area, particularly, are illegal immigrants. And every day you see a crime committed by an illegal immigrant that the Biden-Harris administration led into this country. And we do work for Univision. We do work for candidates all over the country. And Hispanic voters are telling us the same thing, because Hispanic voters are here legally. They became citizens, or if they're Puerto Rican, they are citizens. And they don't do this at all. And they play by the rules. And, people are walking across the border from all over the country, not just Latin American country, but China and Middle East countries. They're coming across our southern and northern borders, and they're here and they're committing crimes. And it's outrageous. And President Trump has the support of the majority of American people to actually use the military to deport illegal immigrants and criminals and start building the wall again. So that's going to happen right away.
Now, what are the numbers looking like moving forward? What's the biggest hot button issue? What are people, what are they ready to see? Are they still waiting to see those same issues? Are they looking for the affordability of groceries and their lifestyle to kick in? Are they looking for neighborhoods to get safer and for the border to be closed? Is there one that's more important than the other from any polling that you've done?
Well, I think you're hitting on those key issues. Plus the fact that they're worried about the endless wars. You look at the Middle East. You look at the war in Ukraine, Russia. They're worried about America being involved in those wars. And with President Trump, they feel more secure. But going back to your key point about inflation and prices, President Trump will from day one, he's going to restart America's energy production, where we'll increase oil and gas production, which will lower prices not just at the gas pump, but also in the supermarkets, because food and transportation, that goes into bringing the goods to the markets. That'll help reduce some of the inflationary pressure. And you're seeing the markets react well to this, because the stock market, the investors are saying America's good to invest in. And one of the key things he has to do right away is, like, the first thing, he has to make the Trump tax cuts permanent. Because if they're allowed to lapse, as the Democrats like Kamala Harris and Joe Biden want them to lapse, you would have a tax increase of $5 trillion affecting 91% of all Americans. You would have businesses leaving the country. You would have businesses going out of business. So, so right off the bat, he's going to have to, make sure his tax cuts become permanent so that the country doesn't go into recession or depression. And that will save us a lot of inflationary pressure, and that will enable the dollar to get stronger, inflation to go down, and people to feel like their wages are worth something again. Plus, when you look at his new plans for tax cuts, the no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, that's going to help working people who want to work and grow the economy. So I think President Trump is definitely as a businessman, as somebody who keeps his word, he's going to try to make all those things happen within the first few months of his administration. So he's going to be working on it right away. I'm sure we'll hear about it in the inauguration address. I'm sure we'll hear about it, in legislation he's going to put before Congress right away.
John McLaughlin, do you have any surveys that have measured the favorability or unpopularity of tariffs?
It depends upon the tariff. Where if it's like Donald Trump says, where he wants a fair playing field, if it's about reducing tariffs and opening up markets to American products, people will support that. And I think you're going to see President Trump yesterday announced that because the borders are open and unsafe with not only Mexico but also with Canada, and he's going to put in a 25% tariff unless they stop the flow of illegal immigration and drugs and other problems into this country. I think you're going to see a majority support for those tariffs, precisely because Americans want to feel secure and Americans want to see our best neighbors that are supposed to be Mexico and Canada help keep us secure. We don't want criminals and terrorists coming over our border, and so I think those things are pretty positive. And Donald Trump has demonstrated before when he negotiated a new trade deal for North America and also in his dealings with China, if you reciprocate that, if you take down your tariffs and open up your markets, we will do the same. So I think Americans strongly support, I've seen lots of polling that Americans support a fair trade policy that we basically reduce tariffs to those countries that reduce them to us. But at the same time, those countries that are putting tariffs, they're doubling the price of cars, American cars, in some of these foreign countries. They're putting tariffs on our cars that you can't sell them in Europe. They're putting tariffs on our cars that you can't sell them certainly in China and other places. And if they're going to do that, Americans will support that we reciprocate with reciprocal tariffs.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. John McLaughlin, CEO and partner of McLaughlin Associates, pollster to President Trump, Netanyahu, and others. And John McLaughlin, before we wrap, I just want to share with the audience about what a rock star you are. Folks, I pull up to the parking lot near Madison Square Garden, get out of the car, I get on the line to go in, and who do I see? I see John McLaughlin, his brother Jim McLaughlin, a couple of other friends, and I couldn't get a word in edgewise with him. Why? Because of his fans. People kept coming by and saying, oh my gosh, I know you from TV, taking pictures of him, getting his autograph. You are a rock star, John McLaughlin.
I don't think of it that way. I'm just fortunate that I've worked for Donald Trump and advised him since 2011. And the fortunate thing is for America that the majority of Americans support Donald Trump and what he stands for, and they know he's fighting for them. So that rally was great. That rally was, like I said, the mother of all Trump rallies at the time. And, I felt bad for the tens of thousands of people trying to get in. Weren't able to get into the garden, but they watched outside. And fortunately, I got to see you. We got to see a lot of our friends there. And Donald Trump, it was 5.5 hours of really good patriotism and positive views for America and positive things, whether it was Donald Trump or Elon Musk or Melania Trump or Eric and you had Larry Trump, and you also had RFK Jr. and you had Tulsi Gabbard, and you had a lot of other Republicans from New York and around the country who were giving reasons why voters needed to support Donald Trump, and that was in the middle of Democratic New York, Manhattan, where Donald Trump. I mean, we lost it to 23% last time. We were within 13, 14% this time. So it was like in New York, 11% of the voters actually switched and went from being hardcore Democrats to voting for Donald Trump. And
double-digit switch for Trump. Amazing.
Yes,
wow.
Yes.
Well, John,
I was going to say, he flipped Nassau County and other parts of the state that Republicans hadn't won for president in decades. So that was great.
Yeah, I'm waiting for him to flip that AOC district. All out crazy. Well, John, I love talking to you. Thank you for your insight. Thanks for the work that you do. My best to you and your family. Have a great Thanksgiving, brother.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, Rich.
You bet. And amigos, we continue with your thoughts, your musings, and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
The president-elect is fulfilling a key campaign promise that could have a major impact on trade. Trump also says that he plans to enact a 10% tariff on China above any additional tariffs on products coming into the U.S. to further pressure the nation to reduce its fentanyl output. On the campaign trail, Trump declared that he would impose a 20% blanket tariff on all imports and add tariffs of at least 60% to Chinese products. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum suggested today that Mexico could retaliate with tariffs of its own. AP is reporting that Sheinbaum said she was willing to discuss the issues but denied drugs were Mexico's problem, saying in part, quote, "It is unacceptable and would cause inflation and job losses in Mexico and the United States." Adding one tariff would be followed by another in response, and so on until put at risk common businesses, end quote. Well, if implemented, the tariffs could drastically raise prices for American consumers on everything from gas to automobiles to agriculture products.
Well, we've seen this before, and which is why I'm not a fan of tariffs. I know a lot of people are, but I'm not. I think tariffs on China have a good effect, and you can use them strategically. But for the long term, the report's accurate. It can increase prices. It can also level the playing field. It could also make things a little bit more tenable in so much as manufacturing within the United States to avoid a tariff. So, but guess what, right? There are these websites that sell Chinese goods. Now, this is not an infomercial for China. This is just the facts. You go on there, and because they're so invested in getting your information, they sell things for like 50 cents, $1.25, things that should cost like $10. And they'll sell it for next to nothing. And if you spend X amount of dollars, you get free shipping. So you could spend $20 and get like a huge box of garbage, trinkets. It's like the Chinese Amazon. However, the reason they give you these little door prizes is because they want to live in your phone. They want you to download their app so that they have permanent residence in your smartphone. Now, they make it very, very cheap for you to buy just about anything you want in China or through China, some factory that China operates in Mexico, a factory that China may operate in Vietnam or elsewhere. They know exactly what they're doing. All I can say is it does get worse before it gets better, but it does get better. Because, why? We've seen this before, right? Trump had put tariffs on Canada, on wood and steel and a couple other products. People were outraged. The left within the media were saying he's Mussolini, he's this, he's that. And lo and behold, it didn't take that long where the desired result was achieved. And they were able to lift the tariffs. So I say again, be patient. We will be okay. But it's going to get worse before it gets better, especially if you have someone like Sheinbaum. Now, President Sheinbaum reminds me of President Xi in many ways, right? President Xi of China decided to engage with Trump, play chicken, and get into this trade war. That's fine. We need to check China, right? That's who we need to kick out of our economy, to kick out of our big cities, to kick out of our airspace. We need to get China to pack it up and bounce. We do. So I'm with it. I'm with whatever aggressive tactics we can come up with to check and curtail China's influence in the United States. But that doesn't mean that everything is a slam dunk, right? There's going to be a period of adjustment that may be a little bit of a challenge. And again, the famous saying, it gets worse before it gets better. And in the words of E.J. Antoni, our resident economist, he said, when those markets tank, it's time to buy. Buy, buy, buy. And I think that's some good advice. Folks, don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
January 6th was disqualifying for me, for Donald Trump. I stand by everything I said about the events of that day and that I said in the 4 years since. I don't think that somebody who engaged that way is somebody who should be in office. Yeah. But I did see over the last 4 years, but really the last 2 years leading up to the election, so many voters, it was just in the rearview mirror. It wasn't that they were comfortable with it. They didn't like it. A lot of people who voted for Trump don't even like Donald Trump and the way he behaves. But what they kept saying is the status quo is just unsustainable. It kept going back to the cost of living, which Hakeem Jeffries said when he was on our show was the number one driving factor in the election. And there was this ABC News poll, and I know we don't love the polls, but it was right before Election Day saying that only 26% of Americans liked the direction the country was going.
26% of Americans like the direction that the country is headed in. That's Alyssa Farah Griffin. She worked for Trump and then turned states on him. And now she's on The View. Not a bad gig if you can get the work, right? Anyway, I'd love to see Matt Gaetz on that show, by the way. I think I've said that before. But I'm lobbying for Matt Gaetz to be the next co-host on The View with 4 or 5 women. Wouldn't that be nuts? That'd be insane. I'd love to see it. Anyway, I want to get back to this woman and her comments about Trump and how January 6th was a disqualifier. And listen, I'm going to say something controversial. I think that is a fair statement. Doesn't mean I agree with her. It's not a disqualifying thing for me, that's for sure. But if that's the bone that you want to pick with Trump, go ahead. Just make sure you know your facts, right? You just know who was who in the crowd, what was what, and don't let the Democrats fool you, right? Because they told plenty of half-truths in that little charade that they had on Capitol Hill that they called the January 6th Select Committee. So anyway, long story short there, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying Alyssa, Farris. I hope I'm not mispronouncing her name. Alyssa Farah, Griffin. People don't care about January 6th in large part. If they cared, they wouldn't have voted for Trump. It's really that simple. Stop trying to make him out to be a terrorist. All right, folks, we're coming right back. Your calls and more, plus a whole new conversation on global terrorism. Don't go anywhere.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to another hour of America at Night with me, Rich Valdez, and I am so happy to be here with you guys. It is Tuesday. I honestly don't know what day it is. Forgive me, folks. I apologize in advance. I am so not with it today. I'm on my third cup of coffee, and I just... today ain't my day. But I do want to talk about some of the stuff that's going on. And I remember when President Biden did his State of the Union, he went into this little bizarre rant. Everybody thought he was going to talk about the border and the economy and inflation and all these important issues that we're facing in the country. And guess what? He decided to speak about junk fees and what that was doing to the country. Now, look, I get it. I hate junk fees like everybody else hates junk fees. But apparently, there's been some tabulation of junk fees. A Senate panel today says they are very critical of what's going on because airlines are actually raking in billions in junk fees. Listen to this.
What's been dubbed junk fees by, this is the Senate Democrats on the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations led by Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, have been looking into all of the ancillary fees, things like bag fees, seat fees, boarding pass fees, all of those things that can get tacked on to the price to fly that go beyond just the ticket price. And it should not surprise any flyer that this has become a lucrative part of the airline business. The 5 airlines they looked at made more than $12.4 billion just in seat fees between 2018 and 2023.
Wow, that's a whole lot of junk fees, right? Again, just to give you that number again, the investigation exposed new details about airlines exploiting passengers with sky-high junk fees. These are coming from the Democrats, again, following Biden's lead. But still an interesting story, especially when we're days away from Thanksgiving. And these are the culprits. American Airlines, Delta, United, Frontier, and Spirit had raked in and accumulated $12.4 billion in just seating fees alone from 2018 to 2023. Now, I don't know what that means, seating fees. I don't know if that's the upgrade charge to pick your chair or what that means, but I don't always agree with Democrats, but this is an area where I might agree. Not in favor of big government intervening in business, but I will say I want to spend less on airlines, right? If we can make airlines more affordable, like through El Trompito's tariffs and increased production of energy, and that could potentially bring down the cost of jet fuel, then yes, I would love to see if that translates into more flights being added, lower overhead for these airlines, and increased profits so that I can get a deal, right? Because I do like to go. I like to go to Florida. I like to go to Puerto Rico. I like to go anywhere where it's hot. And that's why I'm in a daze today. I'm dazed and confused. Why? Because I keep thinking tomorrow's Thanksgiving. I'm already focused and fixated on the turkey. Gobble, gobble, el pavo. Anyway, junk fees. So, again, Kamala Harris just lost miserably. Just, 21 days ago. That's 3 weeks ago today. And instead of saying, look, you know what, we screwed up. The Republicans had a game plan. We're not on the same page. We clearly miscalculated, in particular amongst those areas where they had so much growth in those states where they saw a lot of growth. Nope. They said, you know what, let's focus on what matters. Junk fees. And they're going to go ahead and do what Democrats do best. Try and deflect, a little smoke and mirrors. And that's it. Sweep things under the rug. I don't know if that works all the time. My hope is that it won't work forever. And we'll actually go back to a time where things are just a little bit more affordable. And maybe that's my own pie in the sky thinking. Maybe that's my utopian fantasy. I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. And we'll probably get into this after Thanksgiving. We'll invite, we have a great expert on the airline industry. He's a former, I forget what he's a former, but he knows everything, right? He's a former pilot, but I think he was also a big executive. I just forget what function he had at one of the major airlines. And when I tell you this guy knows this industry inside out, this guy knows it. But we're going to find out what's going on. How significant are these junk fees? I'm going to have to leave you hanging on that one. Plus, Hezbollah has agreed to a ceasefire with Israel. I think we have some audio on that from the BBC. Listen to this.
It looks like the ceasefire deal is going to go ahead, which is 60 days, a kind of trial 60 days, 2 months, during which the Israeli army will withdraw in stages from Lebanon, from the south of Lebanon, where it's been active. Hezbollah will withdraw north of the Litani River, 30 kilometers north of the Lebanon border, and the security vacuum will be backfilled by a bolstered Lebanese National Army and troops from UNIFIL, that's the United Nations interim force in Lebanon. But critically for Israel, the reason why I think he's been able to pass this, to get this deal through the Security Cabinet, or at least get their backing for it, even if they haven't actually physically signed off on it yet. The reason that Israel's been relatively comfortable with this is because it reserves the right to go back into Lebanon with presumably airstrikes or ground forces if it detects that there is an imminent military threat from Hezbollah.
So there you have it. That's most of the details, and I gave you some little extra details in the opening of the first hour. And listen, and maybe we'll replay some of that in a little bit. But the bottom line here is this is a big win, and honestly, this stuff, while happening technically on Biden's watch, didn't happen until Trump secured this victory. And I can't help but think that Trump is on the phone in Mar-a-Lago just working it, right? He's just like, hey, folks, hello, yeah, get me the Hezbollah leader. Hello, Abdul. And doing what he does, just tell him, hey, look, you got to put an end to this. The party ends now. Baby, work with me, baby. Come on, and just really scoring a deal here. And looks like they've scored a deal because I haven't seen Netanyahu at the table yet until now. So congratulations to both. I think it's a job well done. And hopefully we can get more of that, right? We can put an end to a lot of the senseless killing because that's really what has to end. Anyway, folks, I'm going to take a pause right here. We're going to come back, have a discussion on global communism and a new book that's out that outlines that and so much more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Outburst in court today from Rudy Giuliani as he faced questions about payments in his defamation case. Giuliani claimed the judge was unfair and said he's out of money. The former mayor was ordered to turn over $148 million to two Georgia election workers who'd sued him for defamation. The lead counsel in the case withdrew their representation of Giuliani today. His new attorney claims most of the required assets have been handed over. We spoke with Giuliani outside of court.
Turned out exactly as I expected. He ruled against us on everything. The reality is, I have no cash. It's all tied up. So right now, if I wanted to call a taxi cab, I can't do it.
The judge denied a motion to delay the trial. It resumes in January.
So there you have it. They're trying to bankrupt America's mayor, right? Somebody who fought the FARC, the Colombian terrorists known as Fuerzas Armadas Revolucionarios de Colombia, I think is what they go by, FARC, international terror syndicate back in the days. Took on John Gotti and the mob in New York City and won. He took on the terrorist attack of 9/11 on his way out of being mayor. He defended Trump in 2020. I mean, Rudy Giuliani is a real patriot here. And they used this show trial, this Stalin-esque approach to bankrupting him, to weaponizing the system of justice against him in order to marginalize a political opponent and those around him and his legal counsel. I mean, this is the move, right? The tactics are reminiscent of the Bolsheviks, in fact. And the whole thing, for me, is just ugly. And it reminds me that while Trump has won the election and the American people have the president that they voted for, there's still an enemy of our republic that is alive and well inside of our country. And they're working diligently to undo things because they're radical Marxists, secular progressives that just don't see eye to eye with what this country was founded to be. And I can't help but think we need to have a conversation about this. So I want to bring in Trevor Loudon. He's spokesperson for the film Beneath Sheep's Clothing, and he's the author of a number of excellent books on communism and so much more. Trevor Loudon, welcome back, sir.
Hey, it's great to be on. Thanks for having me, Rich.
You bet. Now, I know that this is stuff you've cataloged and studied over the years, but to see it happening in 2024, where they're still going after Rudy Giuliani, which vis-a-vis this is going after Trump, right? And it's just remarkable. It's just remarkable to see this happening. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's exactly right. See, it wouldn't matter if Trump had won 90% of the vote. They would still be doing the same thing. They don't care about the will of the people. They are committed revolutionaries. They believe they are right, and they want to impose their dictatorship on the United States. And who stands in the way to that? President Trump. And if you can't get the president, you get his friends. You make life miserable for him. You attack his friends. You attack his allies. You attack people who stand up for him. You know, and so this is what we've seen with Mike Lindell, and we've seen it with others. They will come after you whichever way they can, because they are, as you made out, Rich, they are revolutionaries. These are Marxist revolutionaries, and justice, natural justice, fairness, decency don't even enter into their thinking.
It really is shocking. But again, I guess I should say not shocking, disappointing, but not surprising, because this is what they've done since the 1900s, when I think they have effectively tried to really revolutionize the United States via their revolution. Now, Trevor Loudon, I want to talk about this because from a historical perspective, and I know you've covered a lot of this for many, many years, it's nothing new, is it?
No, this is 100 years in the making. You know, it started in the 1920s with the Soviet Union. There was almost a revolution in America around 1922. There were strikes and bombings and sabotage. And the young J. Edgar Hoover and the Palmer raids, they had to deport over 6,000 Bolshevik revolutionaries back to Russia. So this has been going on for a while, but it really took off under Obama. because by then the 60s revolutionaries were coming of age. They were at the peak of their power. And now with the Chinese money coming in, the Chinese influence, we are closer to a communist revolution in America than we've ever been before. And thank God that President Trump was elected, because if Kamala Harris had been elected, I don't know how we would have got out of it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. And, you know, for a number of years, I think I've tried to draw parallels between the Marxist sympathizers that we have in our government, like Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders and AOC, All Out Crazy, and so many others. And while I do it, you know, I try to make light of it, but it's a very serious thing and it's a real thing. But yet I feel a lot of people still try to label those of us that are anti-communist somehow as maybe not zealots, but you know, maybe paranoid, like Red Scare types. Does this happen to you too?
Well, that was the tactic for a very long time. It was, you know, when Joseph McCarthy, Senator McCarthy, was naming communists in government, the workers, the newspaper of the Communist Party, coined the phrase McCarthyism. And they used that to denigrate anybody who attacked communism. And it really wasn't until two things happened. President Trump started to use the C word, and Black Lives Matter and the COVID lockdowns, people realized communism, that's not so far off anymore. That's not far-fetched anymore. You know, we were living under COVID basically we were living under Chinese control for 2.5 years under COVID. We got a taste of what communism is. So, no, I don't get a lot of pushback on that now. President Trump uses the word all the time. I don't think a lot of people understand it really, how serious it is, but you can use that word now because that's what we're seeing. These people are communists. As much as Kamala Harris was just as communist as Fidel Castro or Hugo Chavez. But you know, just as communist, she would have been just as malicious as they would have been had she got total power. And we need to understand that that's how far along we are. And President Trump saved us twice now. But we got to make sure he doesn't have to do it a third time. We got to make sure this term undoes 100 years of Marxist infiltration. It has to just rip it out root and branch. We cannot be shy about this.
Folks, we're on with Trevor Loudon, author, speaker, renowned expert on communism out of New Zealand, of all places. That's not a Brooklyn accent that you hear, right? It's a New Zealand accent.
This is a genuine Southern accent. This is a real Southern accent.
And he's the spokesperson for the film Beneath Sheep's Clothing. He's also the founder of the New Zealand blog. The website for the movie, beneathsheepsclothing.movie, beneathsheepsclothing.movie, or trevorloudon.com, Loudon, trevorloudon.com. Folks, we're coming right back with Trevor Loudon to continue our discussion on the book and everything else. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Congratulations on just an amazing show. I know you've worked so hard in the industry, and nobody deserves it more than you do. So I'm happy to see you really succeeding here. It's awesome.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
One of the most consequential lies of history is that Karl Marx put forth an economic theory or doctrine. He did not. He put forth a totalitarian religion. This was a rape of the body of Christ.
He said the ultimate objective was to destroy Christianity. Those were his words.
And Khrushchev bragged about it. We'll take America without firing a shot.
hi, I'm here to impoverish, enslave, and murder you.
They were actual communists. The result you can see.
We have to stay woke.
There are ravening wolves in sheep's clothing all over the place.
Outstanding. That's the trailer for Beneath Sheep's Clothing, a new film by Trevor Loudon, Beneath Sheep's Clothing.movie. Trevor Loudon, tell us about this film. What was the inspiration here? I mean, most of your work has always circled around calling out communism for what it is, but what was the impetus for this particular project?
Well, the real drive of the movie is Julie Belling. I'm a contributor, as is James Lindsay and several others. But Julie was a missionary in Russia after the collapse of communism, and got to study a lot of how the Soviet authorities had suppressed churches, suppressed enemies, and the tactics that they used. So when she came back to America, she did a PhD in Russian, and she followed on her studies and developed a book detailing how the same tactics were being used in the United States by the Democratic Party, by the left, to come after their enemies to establish totalitarianism. So that was the impetus of it, and it sort of morphed from there to, I think that the real objective of the book is to draw a lot of threads together, because people see things like the transgender movement and open borders, and they see woke Hollywood and woke churches and woke sport, and they see the destruction of the education system and the over-sexualization of kids, all of these things. And they don't see them as part of a comprehensive revolutionary program. So Julie's movie really lays it out. This is modern communism in America. This is how it works. This is how it's been driven. This is how it affects you. And this is how you can join the dots and see it. It's a very inspiring movie. She's done a fantastic job, and James Lindsay and Alex Newman, and she got real Russian dissidents in there, and Russian Christians, and it's just a fantastic watch. It really, really is.
Folks, the film Beneath Sheep's Clothing.movie, Beneath Sheep's Clothing.movie. Now, Trevor Loudon, when people go to the film, what is the major takeaway that you're hoping that they have?
Well, I think, speaking for myself, it's that they will understand all of these strange things that are happening to America, everything from open borders, as I said, to the perversion of religion. People see them, they just think it's people being stupid. That this is just idiocy. What I want them to understand, this is an organized and connected up a set of movements that are working to bring the country down into a final revolution. I want them to connect the dots, because a lot of people know there's something wrong, or know there's lots of things wrong, but they don't know why it's happening. They think it's just stupidity. No, it's malicious. It's deliberate, malicious, and the movie lays that out very, very well.
And what's the best way or place for people to be able to watch the film?
Well, go online to beneathsheepsclothing.movie. You can order hard copies there, or download it and do a pay-per-view. You can also go to Amazon and make Jeff Bezos a little bit richer and order hard copies through there. But I think the best way is beneathsheepsclothing.movie. And Julie has a whole bunch more resources there too. This movie is designed to be part of a movement to educate Americans and how we can save the Constitution and how we can work together as communities going forward. So it's more than a movie. There's really a movement here. And I think we all realize that, America's not the same as it was a couple of years ago. The COVID, Black Lives Matter, or the stolen elections, millions of Americans now understand that we could lose this country. That's not far-fetched anymore. That's not paranoid. People understand how bad things have got, and they're searching for answers, searching for cohesion. So I think that's why the movies come along at a perfect time to provide those answers and get people to fully understand what we're up against and do something about it.
Now, Trevor Loudon, if people want to follow you, learn more about you and the other work that you're doing, where do they go?
Just go to trevorloudon.com. That's where you can get my books, including my recent 400-pager on Kamala Harris's communism, and my movie Enemies Within the Church. You can get it all here from trevorloudon.com.
Outstanding. Well, Trevor Loudon, I really appreciate the conversation. Great luck with the movie and everything else that you're doing.
It's been going brilliant. It's been going brilliantly. So, but we got to use this opportunity while people are paying attention. We just got to get it out there. We're going to have millions of people seeing this.
Outstanding. Again, folks, the website beneathsheepsclothing.movie for the film and trevorloudon.com for everything else. Trevor Loudon. Brother, I appreciate you being here. Godspeed to you, sir.
It's always a pleasure, Rich. Thanks so much for having me, and bless you and bless your audience. Thank you.
You too, brother. Happy Thanksgiving. And amigos, we come back. Your calls, your thoughts, and so much more coming up. Open Phones Across America is coming up in the top of the next hour as well. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. If you've never called the show, today's a great day to try. We love speaking with first-time callers. Of course, if you disagree, you get moved to the front of the line as well. And always looking forward to our regulars. We have some amazing callers here from all across the country. We're live, we're national, and we're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. And I want to get your input on a couple of the things that are going on here. Let us see. Where do we go? I want to go to Paul, Boise, Idaho. Paul, go right ahead.
Yes, I think that the fact that...
All right, let's move off of Paul. Let's go to Doc in Wilmington, Delaware, WDEL. Doc, go right ahead.
Rich, first of all, happy Thanksgiving to you, my friend.
Likewise,
my Latino amigo. Happy Thanksgiving to you, your family, and your entire staff, and all listeners, to all the listeners out there. I'm following the web and the fake stream media on my television here. In between listening to you every night, Rich, and you are. I want to say this to you personally, my brother. You are, as Jimbo was, part of my continuing adult education. I've learned as much from you in your show in the short time you've been on as I have in my college pursuits here in Delaware and at the University of Pennsylvania and Philadelphia.
Wow,
you're a fantastic guy. I love you to death.
Thank you,
Rich, I want to know. I want to know what you think of my thoughts. I think the Democrats are going to pull out all the stops and try to sabotage President Trump. And I think what we have to look at as Republicans and conservatives and libertarians, of which I am one, is the 2026 elections. We've got to take those elections and solidify both houses so that President Trump can complete his legacy and carry it on for J.D. Vance. Your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, so look, You're 100% right. And that's the nature of politics. There's always going to be a next election, right? Especially with the House of Representatives being every 2 years and the Senate alternating, staggering their votes, even though they're every 6 years. There's always a Senate election. So, yeah, those are going to be the top targets for the Democrats to come, and they're going to try and weaken the majority. They're going to try and take something back. They're going to try and leverage everything that they've got to gain some power here. And we can't let it happen, but it can, right? The reality is that that's a possibility that could happen, and that would, in effect, render Trump not completely lame duck, but a little bit closer to being lame duck. And that's not something we need. So these guys have to hit the ground running, and I think that's exactly what Trump is doing. He's putting in all the work that has to be put in right now before he's even gotten to the White House, and good on him for doing it. I believe that's the way to do it, so that forget day one, but day now, you start making the moves that are necessary. And I think we're seeing this Hezbollah ceasefire not because Joe Biden's in office and not because of Kamala Harris, but because in reality, Bibi and Trump have a good relationship, and I think he's behind the scenes doing what he's got to do. So I think you're right. They're definitely going to try and sabotage Trump however they can. And the best thing that we can do is support him, support the administration, make sure we get the right people in there, and give it all we got, because you only get one shot at this trifecta.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you always, brother.
You bet, and have a great Thanksgiving. God bless you, Doc. I appreciate it. Let us continue. Let's see. What's this one about? Walter, St. Augustine, Florida, WFOY. What's on your mind tonight?
Hi, Rich. Well, I just want to tell you how stupid and prejudice and discrimination can make one look. When I grew up on the Lower East Side of New York City, the projects out for East Smith, it was 80% Puerto Rican. And Rich, yo tengo cariño por Puerto Ricans. I'm Italian. Thank you. I'm Italian-Argentine descent. My friend, he's all Italian. He comes up to me. This is 1964. He shows me his new pointy shoes. Rich, his shoes. And he calls them PRFCs. I said, what's that? He says, Puerto Rican fence climbers. But Rich, he's wearing the shoes. So now what are they? IFCs? Italian fence climbers? You know what I'm saying?
That was back when you could make ethnic and racial jokes and it wasn't the end of the world and people didn't get bent out of shape. And I got to tell you, I really do appreciate some good old-fashioned free speech. I do. While it's sometimes it can be offensive to some people, I think that's the price you pay for free speech. If you ever look at some of my Twitter comments, people are hitting me up with saying all sorts of crazy things every now and again. But by and large, most of the comments are intelligent and fair and fun, right? They're just really, it's always a good time reading what the listeners have to say. So I'm all for it. I really am. And I love good humor. And in a bit, you know what? We're going to pause right here. When we come back, I'm going to play you a little clip from a comedian just to show you how much I support free speech and comedians and whatnot. Walter, thanks for your call, brother. Shout out to WFOY, St. Augustine, Florida. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Whoever you vote for is your business. But the sign outside of your house on the lawn is f***ing insane. That's where your wife and kids live. Even if you vote for Kamala, don't put a sign out there for the maniacs to see that in this house there's an unarmed pussy waiting. I'm gonna rob you out of principle. I'm just gonna walk in, give me all your shit. Some Sam Smith looking is in the kitchen, wearing a mask in his own house. Honey, come down. He's here to rob us. Some green-haired bitch comes down. Don't assume. They are here to rob us. That's why the sign outside my lawn has Trump 2024. In this house, we grab pussy, we shoot people. Come on in!
I thought that was so funny. That is a clip from comedian Ari Mati. Very, very funny stuff. And again, that's my homage to free speech. We'll do a little bit more with some Jon Stewart in a little bit. But right now, I want to get back to your calls. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And let's go to Frank, Cumberland, Maryland, WCBC. Frank, what's on your mind?
Trevor Loudon was telling us about communism, but you're from Puerto Rico, and there was a Puerto Rican congressman in New York City in the 1940s named Vito Marcantonio. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he was a communist. And
yes. We also have AOC, who's cut from the same cloth as Marc Antonio, as well as Lolita Lebron, the woman who brought a gun into the United States Congress and shot a congressman in 1954. These are all folks from the island of Puerto Rico, the island my parents were born on. And just like here in America, where we have communist sympathizers and commies amongst us, you have them in Puerto Rico as well. In fact, Frank, there was a big movement to try to make Puerto Rico into the next Cuba. And it's still there. And they hide behind independence and nationalism, interestingly, to peddle their communist goods, in my humble opinion. The idea of Puerto Rico being a sovereign nation that's not part of the United States is a bad idea, in my opinion. But it goes on, at least by their thinking, to provide a platform for them to say that we are under the thumb of the imperialist Americans and we are oppressed as a result. And this is the same communist narrative we hear time and time again, whether it's you're oppressed because of your race, you're oppressed because the Americans are here taking over. Somehow in these people's minds, they feel that if there was no U.S. military presence on the island, if there was no U.S. investment on the island, that somehow Puerto Rico would be better. And, I mean, I guess you could argue that, and none of us have a crystal ball, but I think for the most part, what you can prove just by the plebiscite votes that they've had on more than one occasion, the people overwhelmingly, like north of 80% each and every time, vote to be a part of the United States in the form of a state. And in fact, it's been Republicans in Congress that have blocked this action, namely Mitch McConnell, who in an odd way seems to agree with AOC on the matter. It's just the craziest thing in a weird way. So that's all I know about that particular topic. So Vito Marcantonio, a commie Republican from New York that was Puerto Rican and spoke Italian too, by the way. No friend of mine. Persona non grata. Frank in Cumberland, Maryland, and everybody else. We're coming right back. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to another hour of our live and national program. If you want to join me tonight in some conversation, here's the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And we have calls on the line right now. We're going to get to your calls momentarily from Phoenix, Arizona, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's KFNX, KDKA, WTKI. Montreal, Canada, listening online as well. KBFI, or is that KBOI? I'm not sure. I got to double check that. Manhattan, Kansas, online, and so much more. And I want to first give you a quick rundown. We've had some discussion tonight. If you're just joining the program, you'll know that there's some news tonight, right? El Trompito has influenced, in my opinion, the military activity that's going on in the Middle East between Israel and Hezbollah, a Iranian proxy group. And it's great to see what's happening because they're finally packing it up, right? They're saying, you know, we're not going to shoot each other for a couple of months. And I think that's great news. We have a report from the BBC on that. Listen to this.
It looks like the ceasefire deal is going to go ahead, which is 60 days, a kind of trial 60 days, 2 months, during which the Israeli army will withdraw in stages from Lebanon, from the south of Lebanon, where it's been active. Hezbollah will withdraw north of the Litani River, 30 kilometers north of the Lebanon border, and the security vacuum will be backfilled by a bolstered Lebanese National Army and troops from UNIFIL, that's the United Nations interim force in Lebanon. But critically for Israel, the reason why I think he's been able to pass this, to get this deal through the Security Cabinet, or at least get their backing for it, even if they haven't actually physically signed off on it yet. The reason that Israel's been relatively comfortable with this is because it reserves the right to go back into Lebanon with presumably airstrikes or ground forces if it detects that there is an imminent military threat from Hezbollah.
So that is the latest scoop on what's going on. Joe Biden weighing in on this as well. And let me see which clip I want to use of Biden. I think it was a couple of reactions we had from Joe Biden. But let's just let Count Delacula pick one. Let's get a clip from Joe Biden.
This is designed to be a permanent cessation of hostilities. What is left of Hezbollah and other terrorist organizations will not be allowed, well, I emphasize, will not be allowed to threaten the security of Israel again. Over the next 60 days, the Lebanese army and state security forces will deploy and take control of their own territory once again. Hezbollah terrorist infrastructure in southern Lebanon will not be allowed to be rebuilt. And over the next 60 days, Israel will gradually withdraw its remaining forces. And civilians on both sides will soon be able to safely return to their communities.
So that is Joe El Baboso Biden weighing in on this ceasefire that, as I've heard it reported, it was Donaldus Magnus El Trompito, along with his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, that began negotiations for the ceasefire for this, as well as a potential end to the barrage, the assaults that they've had on one another in Gaza. So it might be a twofer. I'm hoping that's the case. But there's more. Lots of news. There's also the airlines. The Senate is coming after the airlines, saying that the junk fees are making them rich. Billions of dollars have been brought in over the last couple of years with respect to these junk fees. And it makes you question, what's going on with these junk fees? Well, I want to get your thoughts and more on that when we return, as well as some of the other stuff we've got cooking. Let me just share a couple of these stories with you. We've got Dr. Jay Bhattacharya. You know him from this program. He was the doctor that famously said, if you close the schools, the kids are not going to be well. And they closed the schools and the kids were not well. Well, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya from Stanford University, he has been chosen by the Trump team to lead the NIH, the National Institutes for Health. So Godspeed to him on that nomination. I can't think of a more fitting person. The guy's an expert in his field and was actually silenced like the way RFK Jr. was. And good for him. He stood up for the truth, and those are the type of people that you need. So that's a very, very good piece of news. Let me see. What else do I got here? We talked about Giuliani earlier. We might get back to that. Oh, here's a good one. Something to break up the monotony a little bit. Dictionary.com has named their word of the year. Drum roll, please. Here we go. The word is demure. Demure is the 2024 word of the year, according to Dictionary.com. Demure. All right. Well, I mean, I suppose that's as good as any other word that's out there. So we'll continue with that. The rest of our stories, your comments and thoughts as well. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Well, Mr. Valdez, you have one of the greatest shows that radio's ever had.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Joe and Mika going down there might be one of my favorite when they had to come out and go, and so we did. Like, they spent the year going, this man will destroy all that you hold dear. He is a Hitler Mussolini cocktail mix. And we must all say, literally 1 week later, they're like, so we go, we have lunch, a light lunch. I get the watercress salad, and you know Joey. He loves shrimp fra diavolo. So and the Mar-a-Lago shrimp fra diavolo is delicious. I thought that was one of the more remarkable, but it shows the performative nature of so much of all of this, which is, again, when you talk about credibility, like,
So Jon Stewart, again, criticizing Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski from The Morning Joke on MSNBC, saying they're not the real deal. They are fake, phony, and fraud, that the only way to do this thing is to be a real ideologue. And I guess you can be an ideologue, and you don't have to necessarily, be rude or switch up on people, but that's what they do. Right, that's kind of what they've done, and that's why they're getting this backlash. If you were always kind of kind to people, then you wouldn't have this issue. But they were saying, like he said, he's Hitler, he's a threat to democracy, he's this, he's that, he's the other, and then we're, changing our tune. Anyway, I want to get your thoughts on that and so much more. Let me see, where do we go from here? Let's go to Pat, Sedona, Arizona. What do you think of this Joe Scarborough stuff, Pat? KFNX.
Hey,
Yeah, Rich, thank you. Thank you for taking my call. Hey, happy holidays. You know, good Thanksgiving to you and your family, especially your daughter that voted for the first time. I love how you bring your family into your show. It really, really adds a good touch. But I'll tell you this thing about Joe Scarborough, and I call her Tinkerbell, or Tinkerbell, the little blonde. Her dad was a famous something in the government, but they are so phony. I mean, it's like The View. I've never seen The View. Can you believe that? I've never investigated.
I think you're pretty good, right?
Yeah,
that's a good thing that you haven't seen it.
I've seen so many clips about it, and only crazy ones with Goldberg and the other lady. And I'll tell you what, Walter Cronkite is really needed in our news media because the guy said it when it was hard to say the truth. And the truth was not pretty. And he still said it, but he said it in a way to make Americans not ashamed, but to think, what are we doing? And I think our media today, they held back the badness of Joe Biden's mental capacity, this two-tiered legal system, and the outrage the Americans feel that have been left behind by the media, thinking all these movie stars and all these elites think they know the truth. They didn't. We proved it on November 5th. Us Americans know what we want in our country, and I'll tell you, it's not them.
Yeah, I agree. It's not them. It's everybody, right? Everybody spoke, and it's not the lefty liberals that are out there controlling everything. I think if anything, they've proven that their grip has been softened, Pat. And I think you're spot on with that. I'm glad that people came out and voted. I really am, and I hope we can maintain that level of momentum from everybody that voted, so that we we can get the change we need in the adequate time frame. Because otherwise, it may not work out. Right? We have to get things done quickly. Pat, Godspeed to you. Happy Thanksgiving, my brother. Thank you so much for your call. Let's continue. Let's see. Where do we go? Let me see who is next over here. Let's go to Ethan, Morehead City, North Carolina, WTKF. Ethan, go right ahead.
No, my name is Stephen with a PH.
Oh, Stephen. Okay, wonderful. Stephen, welcome.
Yes, with a PH, and you're with the S.
Love it.
I've enjoyed your show for many, many years. And let's just say, I think the two callers before me stole a lot of my thunder, because I will say the same in my experience. My wife came up from Puerto Rico on a 1935 Pontiac, and they put they did the float on the tires. And we came over from Cuba, and that's when Castro came in, and they were escaping, and they were going for their lives. And that was,
how did you get here from Cuba?
Via St. Augustine, and that's why that blew my mind when I heard the man say he was from St. Augustine. That is my home place.
No, I'm saying you came in a boat or a jet ski, or how did you get here? Or did you fly?
No, we came in I think it was a 1935 Pontiac, and we inflated the balloon things, and we floated over. Yes.
Oh, so you made a boat out of a car?
Yes. Have you not seen that?
I didn't know that you'd done it.
Yeah, we did it, and a whole bunch of us did it. And see, that was the thing, is when Castro came in, it was like run for your life. I mean, really. And Ms. Alvarez, who taught us Spanish all those years, and I'm Roman Catholic, and so we went to a Catholic school. When we went,
You went to a Catholic school where, in Florida?
Yes, first, but we went to Immaculate Heart of Mary in High Point, North Carolina. That's where we ended up. And now check this. This is kind of crazy. And they put us in the advanced Spanish class. And they could not, and you put the headphones on, they could not understand a word we were saying because it was the dialect that was different. It was Cuban. It was not. It wasn't the Spanish that you get from the European.
Ah, yes. Well, these dialectical differences, Stephen, are so unique, right? And I think it's what makes Hispanics so appealing to so many people. For example, I can tell you, I love the Cuban accent. I think it's terrific. I love the Puerto Rican accent. It's also fantastic. But what I love more than any of those things is the cuisine from each of these places, right? Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, and Cuba are somewhat similar in that they're all in the Caribbean. So they all have those African Caribbean roots in their music, in so much of everything, in the culture overall, in the way they cook. And I love that. The rest of Latin America, if you'll use that term, Ecuador, Argentina, Chile, they're all kind of contiguous in South America along with Brazil. And totally different vibe there, right? You've got Incas, Aztecs, Amazons, all sorts of different types of indigenous groups, as opposed to the Taínos that were in Puerto Rico and in the Caribbean. So very, very different type of vibe. The music is very different. They sound very different. I guess the mother tongue is always, Spanish. In Spain, it's the Castilian Spanish, and it evolves as you go to these different places. But the cuisine, right? The cuisine is my focus. I absolutely love it. I mean, I love tacos. I love a lot of interesting Hispanic cuisine, but they're very distinct. And for example, when I go to Florida, if I'm in Miami, I always visit one of the Cuban places because, who doesn't love some of those, all the Cuban delicacies that they sell in these little sandwich shops, like a Cuban sandwich, for example. But, when you find yourself a good Puerto Rican restaurant, let's say like in Orlando, there's amazing things that you can get there that you could never get in the Cuban place. And the same holds true for the Dominicans, So my favorites are, I love the Dominican mangú for breakfast with the fried cheese and the fried salami. That stuff is just super delicious. Healthy, I don't know, but super delicious. And then you've got the alcapurrias that you can get, the deep fried ones in the Puerto Rican place. And come on, you can't ever go wrong with some arroz con gris, the black rice, and a Cuban sandwich from the Cuban place. Stephen, thank you for your call. I love your story. God bless you, my brother. Happy Thanksgiving to you and to your family. And folks, we're coming right back. The rest of your calls and more. We got calls from Tampa, Florida, Idaho, Montreal, Canada, Kansas, Montana, and more. I'm Rich Valdez.
Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
And you gave all that you could to support our campaign. Because of your efforts, get this, we raised an historic $1.4 billion, almost $1.5 billion from grassroots supporters alone. The most in presidential campaign history. Nearly 8 million donors contributed an average donation of about $56 to fuel our people-powered campaign. And understand that the work that we did included the work that so many of you here did, which is to talk to first-time voters. Many of you are first-time voters. And to talk about how being involved can make a difference. And that remains true.
That remains true. Kamala Harris and her Democrat friends spent $1 billion to try to pull the wool over your eyes, and it didn't work. And they ended up in debt. Unbelievable. It almost makes me wish I was a friend of Kamala Harris's. Why didn't she offer me $100,000 to interview her the way she offered it to Alex Cooper from the Call Me Daddy podcast, or the $1 million that she gave to Oprah Winfrey's production company? I got a production company too. Come on, let's go. Let's go. Kamala, where you at? Anyway, I see Kamala's boyfriend is going to call in and try and set me straight. But anyway, I want to continue with the calls because I love speaking with you all, the American people, right before we head into the Thanksgiving holidays. It's Thanksgiving Eve tomorrow. Biden, by the way, pardoned the turkeys yesterday. I think we have audio of that. We'll get to that later, perhaps. But let us go to the phones. Harold, Manhattan, Kansas, listening online to richvaldez.com. Harold, go for it. You're on the air.
Yeah, I just want to talk about the waste in this country. I have a son that works at a grocery store, and he showed me pictures of two whole baskets of, like your meats and that kind of stuff, packaged meats and everything, just going in the trash. And this is just a small grocery store. The other thing I'd like to talk about is I went to a wedding out at the state of Washington here a couple years ago. And I have cousins and relatives all up and down the West Coast, Washington, Idaho, and they grow, they're farmers, most of them. They grow walnuts and carrots and potatoes and apples and that kind of stuff. And I was out there, and there's one of my cousins, we were out there, and there was a carrot field, about a 40-acre carrot field.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know the gist of everything going on here, but it sounds like, yes, many Americans are going to have to grow their own food if we can't get a grip on making it more affordable. I think that's exactly why people voted the way they did, is so that they can, in fact, go to the grocery store and have a little bit more buying power. And I expect that to be the case sooner rather than later. It may get worse before it gets better, but it's definitely going to get better. Harold in Manhattan, Kansas, listening online, richvaldez.com. Thank you for your call, my brother. Happy Thanksgiving to you. And we continue. Let's go to Sarah. She's in Bedford, Indiana, WBIW. Go right ahead.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving. And I wanted to say, with the spotlight on Latin America, remember after our 2020 elections, remember in Brazil, how, and I'm probably mispronouncing his name because I wasn't in Indiana too long, but Jair Bolsonaro.
Oh, Bolsonaro, yeah, he's terrific.
Yeah, he was great. And then they had this mysterious election that may have had some irregularities, and the Brazilians, like us, protested, which I thought was great. Maybe God will bless them with getting Luna out of power, and maybe Bolsonaro or somebody in that mindset will get back. I hope they get their country back.
Me too. And, it seems like there is a movement afoot in Central and South America to bring in populist, conservative-leaning type of leaders. You're seeing it, and not just in Central and South America. I think you're seeing it in some places in Europe as well. Some places, not all. But it's a little bit of a breath of fresh air to see the likes of Javier Milei or Nayib Bukele doing what they're doing in their respective countries of Argentina and El Salvador to try and bring things about, right? The type of change to end the gangs, to restore the currency, and to make their countries better again. And I think that's commendable. But you're right. Bolsonaro was a very good president. He didn't win re-election. A lot of people think it was like our 2020 election, where there was a lot of it was fraught with fraud in other districts, and they couldn't disprove or prove, however which way you're arguing. And voila, a former president, Lula, gets elected again. And this guy was an avowed socialist, and he's not doing much, from what I can see, to help Brazil. I have a couple of people, extended family members of mine that live in Brazil, and I get updates here and there through the different communications we have. And I can tell you, I think people want Bolsonaro back. They really do, but nothing comes easy. Nothing at all. This didn't come easy for Trump, and none of these victories are going to come easy, but I think they're all well worth it. Sarah, thank you for your call. I hope you have the best Thanksgiving ever. Shout out to WBIW in Bedford, Indiana. And let's go to Jerome, Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. Jerome, go for it. You're on the air.
Yeah, Rich, I just want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving, and I want to thank you and all the Trump maggots for putting the convicted felon in the White House, because I served 8 years in the Air Force, and if I had
thank you for your service.
I've been a convicted felon. If I had been a convicted felon, I couldn't have served one day. But you can be president, and you can be a convicted felon, and they'll put you in the White House.
Well, here's the question then, Jerome. Why are you not running for president? What's holding you back?
I don't have any money, and I'm not that good looking, and I get tired of talking about myself all the time. And I don't have beautiful white. I don't have beautiful white skin like Trump. I got beautiful brown skin. But
yeah, well, hey, that worked for Obama. They loved Obama.
Brown skin people. Oh yeah.
I think they loved Obama so much they voted for him twice.
What about all the other guys? What do they look like? Huh?
I don't think people don't vote for people based on their skin color, Jerome. I think you just like to have fun on the radio. You sound like a smart guy, and I don't think anybody's ever voted. Well, I'm going to take that back. I know a bunch of people that voted for Obama just because he was black. And they were like, I think it's time we have a black man in the White House. And to be part of a historic vote where we had our first black president, they voted for Obama. So, yeah, I think that can happen in that direction, but I don't think people go the other way. And if there's a handful of racists out there, that's a possibility. But I think most people always vote the issues, because whether you could hate white people, you could hate black people, you could hate Asians, Hispanics, whatever kind of bigot you want to be. And guess what? When they say this person will help you save money, this person's going to cost you money, I think all your hate goes out the window and you go, I want the one that's going to help me keep my money. And that's just, I think, the reality of life. It's just a fact. It's like survival of the fittest, right? And that's what it boils down to. Jerome, happy Thanksgiving to you, to your girlfriend, Kamala Harris, who I like to call Kamala Harris, and everybody else in WTMA land in South Carolina. Thank you, sir. Let me see. Where do we go here? We'll do one more here. I want to go to Frank, Evergreen, Montana, KOFI. Go for it. You're on the air.
Hi, Rich. Thank you.
Pleasure.
I would want to take us back a few years when the COVID first started. And the population started segregating from classes of people, and water fountains were shut off, so the poor people couldn't just get a free drink, or even tourists. They started having to pay for water just to quench their thirst. Otherwise, you have to go down to a bar, have a beer, or, it's still that same way. In a tavern, you could probably get a shot of whiskey. You can get a shot of whiskey, but the water to chase it down might be $5. And that's the way
Who's taking the shot of whiskey, you or the cadaver?
Yeah, anybody that's traveling, a weary soul that just needs to quench its throat with real water.
Now, let me ask you, what type of whiskey are you drinking? Because I'm not a big whiskey guy, but I have an uncle who introduced me to a brand that I will mention called Macallan 17. And this stuff was expensive, but I got to tell you, really smooth. And since then, it's been my go-to. I really like it. But I don't really like whiskey. It's not really a thing that I do. Well, if you try it, try McAllen 17. I think it's been aged for 17 years. A little expensive, but man, let me tell you, really good stuff. Frank in Evergreen, Montana, have the best turkey day ever. I know it's coming up. Tomorrow's not quite turkey day, but we're celebrating a day early here. So Godspeed to you, sir. I appreciate it. And I'm going to take a pause right here before Count Delacula, my producer, starts yelling at me to take a break, and he's about to. He's getting antsy. So we're going to come right back to our callers in Ohio and Texas and Canada and Idaho, Tampa, Florida, and so many more. Thank you for your patience. Rich Valdez coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
You would be excellent in a diplomatic arena or press secretary. That's because you know how to talk to people and kind of put them down a little bit without them even getting upset about it, you know.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I tell you, we've got some of the best callers in talk radio, the best 3 hours in live late night talk radio. Just honored and thrilled always to be here. I can't express that to you enough. Really, really grateful to be here with you. And I want to continue our late night national town hall conversation. Let us continue. I want to speak with, let's see. I want to go to Tony is in Avon Lake, Ohio, WEOL. Go for it, Tony. What's on your mind?
You remember when people were yelling at AOC?
No, I don't.
A while back ago?
I mean, I know I yell at her every now and again, but I don't remember other people yelling at her. But you remind me.
No, okay. I have an impression for you of AOC for you.
Go for it.
Listen! Okay.
You sound just like her, Tony. You know, I once asked her to come on a radio show, and she didn't even answer me. She just ran across the street, and but she did make a funny face. And as you were doing that, your great impression of her, I was visualizing her making that face, kind of, giving me the side eye, and then bolting across the street. I love it, Tony. Thank you, brother. Happy Thanksgiving to you and everybody in Avon Lake, Ohio, WEOL. Great station. And we continue. That's great. I used to do morning radio every now and again when my buddy Bernie and Sid were out. And they had their producer, Matt Meany, who's great. He had some clips of AOC similar to the one that Tony was just making fun of, and he would just play them in out of nowhere, and it would make me laugh, and it really made the show just very, very funny. Good old times on the radio. Anyway, we continue. Where do we go from here? We go to Texas. We go to Big Tex in Amarillo, Texas, streaming the show tonight. And brother, what's on your mind?
Mr. Rich, El Capitan, I'm so happy to speak with you on this side of the election, man. God really spared us from flying off the edge of a cliff with our democracy, And I just wanted to let you know, man, I wasn't going to call in tonight, but I love listening. And in the spirit of Thanksgiving, I just wanted you to know from the bottom of my heart, man, like I'm a night owl, and that's when I listen to the radio. And you, my friend, were just a shining beacon in the you know what storm that we just went through, man, for me, and in a way that kept me spiritually grounded and hopeful. And so going into Thanksgiving, man, I just really wanted to tell you that from the bottom of my heart, I'm truly thankful for you and all of your buds that make this show possible, man. And thank you.
Thank you, brother.
And we won, and it's not over, but God bless, man.
Yeah, you too, brother. God bless you too. And let me tell you, you're right. It's not over. Oftentimes with this business, whether it's broadcasting or politics, if you're in the administration or, an activist on the front lines of the grassroots, it's always, tomorrow's always harder than today, right? Today we win the election. Tomorrow we've got to root out the deep state, put in new policies, bring in new people. I mean, the work that Trump has ahead of him is mighty. The good news is Trump is one of those guys that really thrives in a challenge. Like you tell them, hey, look, they're going to shoot at you. They're going to try and make you broke. They're going to try and put you in jail. They're going to go after your kids. They're going to go after your money, all sorts of things. And he's going to go, okay, terrific, let's go. He gets pumped up by that type of stuff. And those are the type of people that you need. You need people that rise to a challenge and embrace it head on and say, come on, let's go. Locked and loaded. And I think that's El Trompito for you. He's ready for the task, and I'm pretty sure you are too over there in Amarillo, Texas. Big Tex, Godspeed to you, my man. Have a great Thanksgiving. And, folks, I'm going to pause right here. We're going to come right back with the speed round. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, we're back. It's the speed round, and I want to go to Eduardo, Tampa, Florida, WWTK. Go for it, quickly.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving, Rich.
You too, bro.
We need to, I'm supportive of these tariffs with China and Mexico and Canada. We need to keep these illegals in Mexico. She can ship them out to the homeland.
Yeah, I think you're right, brother. Spot on, Eduardo. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. Let us continue. I want to go to John, Dallas, Texas, KLIF. Go for it.
Thank you, Rich. For how much time do I have?
Whatever you have, you're losing by asking.
Okay. Well, anyway, my first experience was many, many years ago. All I was doing was crossing a place where, you shop for Christmas stuff, and it was closed because it was Christmas Day. I was just taking a shortcut, and a reporter accosted me and said, why was I in this shopping center and it's Christmas? And I said, well, I celebrate Christmas. I was just taking a shortcut. Anyway, he's a reporter for the newspaper there, and so he writes a story, and I read the story. But when he tells the story, he makes me out to be a communist when I'm not a communist. And then when I came back I lived in Israel for about 7 years. I came back from Israel. I was circulating a petition I'm not going to mention the guy's name, but anyway, he was a Republican, and all I was doing is circulating the petition, and all of a sudden I started getting mail from the State Department from Salem, Oregon, and telling me that I was under investigation.
They were coming to get you, huh, John? Well, John, we're out of time. Speed round, you got to keep it to like one sentence, maybe two if you talk fast. Have a great Thanksgiving, John. Shout out to everybody in Dallas, Texas, KLIF. Happy Thanksgiving, America. We're taking a couple of days off, but we'll have some amazing shows lined up for you. Hasta la próxima. Take care, good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.